economies, bookend the country, Newsom and Mamdani, imported foreign voters, changing all our history, an evil opportunity to employ the ballot factory. But guess what, everything will be okay. One day, it is. It's hump day. Get it on. Hump day.
It's elections like last night that make me age prematurely, certainly. But I'm not worried. I'm not. You're not going to find dooming around here. You're not going to find me weeping or gnashing of teeth. You're not going to find me sitting there curled up in a fetal position, in the fecal position, on the floor, crying my eyes out because a bunch of Marxists won in cities that have been surrendered to the Marxists. I'm going to direct my anger at days gone by, generations gone by that allowed this to happen to our American experiment, and I'm going to stay laser focused, not on my own, not on the infighting and drama and unnecessary distractions of the moment, but on the true enemy, which is the Marxist. And let me give you a little example of what we are truly fighting. You're going to be shocked that it doesn't come from Zoran Mandami's speech or any of the speeches of the communists or dangerous left-wing radicals that were elected last night, including a guy that says he wants to mass slaughter and genocide Republican children. We're going to talk a little bit on this program. And I've thought deeply about this, about what is actually happening. What is the moment that's going on here? And it's a good moment. It's a cyclical moment. And it's a moment that will have a very happy ending as long as we keep our vision and our core and our grounding stable. The founders set us up for success. The founders created ingenious systems to ensure that America will always and forever be a bulwark against the type of nihilistic Marxism, the type of death, destruction, violent power grabs that you are now seeing across the nation. They are violent people, and we're going to talk about why. But this is the path of every great civilization. Is your civilization strong enough to shrug off the enemies within? And let me explain what the enemy within looks like. Hassan Piker, maybe you know, maybe you don't. He is a left-wing streamer. He's somebody who's a bestie with Zoran Mandami. He's someone who is an absolute and total radical. He's also an animal abuser, live on his stream. He calls for the murder of Republicans and the genocide of Republicans with regularity. He then abuses his animal, his dog, by shocking it if it doesn't stay in his shot. I mean, this guy's a monster. And he's done this regularly. Anyway, this is the kind of drama that I like to follow because, quite frankly, it's the way to take and to deplatform take our enemies and to expose them. And this guy is the enemy of America. And let me explain. In a very simple clip from last night, as Hassan is celebrating the election of a globalist communist in New York by shockingly not abusing his dog. I thought that's the way that the guy celebrated, but here we have Hassan Piker stating that it's too bad that America, the country that he lives in, was able to defeat the Soviet Union. This is what we're fighting against. Here we go.
Done.
What do you think it means that this guy ran as a socialist and anti-communism didn't work to stop him? That's big.
Yeah, I think we are in the heart of the imperial core. This is the country that defeated the USSR, unfortunately. And the reality of the matter is, there's a lot of antagonism. There's no class consciousness in the United States of America. It's one of the things that I try to address every day with my commentary. And I will say this, the conditions have deteriorated so much that everyday Americans, in spite of their lack of class consciousness, are finally arriving at the conclusion that perhaps there is an alternative out there. There is an alternative that focuses on them as opposed to the interests of the billionaires and the millionaires, as opposed to the interests of the capital owners. And I mean, you can't help but notice that. You can't help but feel at least a little bit of excitement around that.
And also the significant.
This is a man that says that it's too bad that America defeated the Soviet Union. He's living in America and not in a communist country. There are many communist countries that exist. You can move to Havana. You could move to Pyongyang. You could move back to neo-socialist nations. You could move to China. Hassan could move anywhere, but he lives here in America. It's very easy to be a communist in a capitalist country. It's very easy for Hassan. Hassan, with his degenerate and animal-abusing worldviews, would not be welcomed, I don't think, in most of the communist nations on Earth. Hassan also likes to wear women's jewelry and is a very interesting character. Anyway, the point is, I'd just love to see Hassan spend a day in Pyongyang. I'd love to see Hassan spend a day inside of the nation. Well, there you go. That the types of nations and styles of governance that he so seeks here in America. He's an edgelord. He would never dare. I've been to Havana. I've been to Cuba. I've shown people what it looks like there, the gas lines, the food lines, the hellscape, the hopelessness, the collapse, the calamity of a once great nation and civilization. We've shown people the starvation. We've shown people the body bags stacked 100 million high from Marxists and communists over the last 100 years. In the types of regimes that Hassan fetishizes. China, the Soviet Union. This is what they wish to bring to America. And there's a reason why they want to bring this to America. And it's critically important. Godlessness. These people don't believe in God. They don't believe in a creator. These first lines of our Declaration of Independence, all men are what? Created. Created by whom? Well, the Democrat Party, flip a quarter, whether they believe in God or not. 50% of the Democrat Party doesn't believe in God. So if you're going to make the argument that all men are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, but you don't believe in God, then you're not going to believe in America's founding. You can't believe that all men are created equal if you don't believe in God. It's totally and completely antithetical, and this is precisely the Marxist worldview, which goes like this. There is no God. There should be no church. There should be no private businesses. There should be no private ownership of anything. The state should own everything. The state is God. And that is the grand difference. And it always has been, by the way. It shouldn't chill you to the bone. It shouldn't scare you that this is happening now in America. It's always happened throughout all civilization. There are societies that are structured around the belief that God is God and is sovereign, and they are always fought from within by those who believe that they are God and that the government is God. And that is the constant battle. It's an eternal battle. It's been fought for thousands and thousands of years, and that is what we are facing now. Hassan Piker is sitting there saying that the Soviet Union is too bad that they collapsed. You know, Stalin killed something like 40 million of his own people. For what? For power. He starved them to death. Some of the worst genocides in human history committed by a regime that Hassan Piker is fetishizing there and celebrating at the Zorhan Mandami election night party. They're telling you who they are. They're telling you what they believe, and they're telling you what they want to do here. All men are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Life. Life is the first and foremost right that we have. We are the party of life. We are a movement of life. They are a movement of death and destruction. And they have proven that. Not only in this election cycle, but over the last year, that they are willing to kill. They're willing to kill President Trump. They celebrated that President Trump was shot in the head. They celebrated that Charlie Kirk was murdered. They are now fully and totally, the Democrat Party has metastasized into a Marxist, a wholly Marxist and communist movement. Zorhan Mandami bragged about being a socialist. That is just a candy paint version of communism. It's the same thing. Government, wholesale government control of public and private industry. And they're openly celebrating the Soviet Union because they don't see value in life. They don't believe in a creator. 50% of Democrats don't believe in God. That means they don't believe in America's founding and they don't believe in the value of life. Now, 93% of Republicans believe in God, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference. Republicans also go out and do the kind of thing that creates more life, like starting families, falling in love, getting married, having babies, following God's first commandment. Go be fruitful and multiply. The first commandment of God in the Bible is not the 10 Commandments. It's not the Beatitudes or Sermon on the Mount. All of those things are incredibly important, and you should study all of them and write them on your heart. But the first command of God to Adam after his creation of Adam is go be fruitful and multiply. Because Republicans believe in God, we follow through on that. Being a parent is a right-wing coded activity. Having families, living prosperous, happy lives, free of the spiraling nihilism and envy and bitterness of the left. These are good and positive things, but the left doesn't engage in that. They also don't have children. They just don't. If you're older than 30 and you're childless and you're not in a relationship, there's a 70% chance you're a Democrat. Meanwhile, if you do have more than 2 kids and you're over the age of 30, there's a 60% chance you're a Republican. Parenting is right-wing coded because we do believe in God and because we do make choices that lead to happier lives. The left doesn't. They cannot procreate, and so they try and indoctrinate. And when they can't indoctrinate, they destroy and they kill. And that is what we're facing. And it doesn't surprise us what happened last night because, well, we've been talking about this for years. And we've been seeing it happen for years. What Charlie often said was what happens on the college campus is going to overtake the political establishment. And so Charlie saw it very early that these little AOCs were taking over college campuses, and they were Marxists. And then AOC gets elected as a socialist, and everybody laughed and thought there's no way that this could be a viable movement. And now look, Democrat socialism, whatever the hell that is, just communism, has wholly and completely taken over the Democrat Party. And so that is the fight. That is the civilizational battle that we are up against. You can truly boil it down to who owns the American dream. What is the American dream? As set forth by our founders, the American dream is beautifully crystallized life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And who owns those 3 things? Our movement. Our movement has the key to all of them. We're the ones who practice all of them. And the left practices none of them. They practice destruction. And the destroying of life, especially. And they don't see any problem with it as long as it leads to power. That's communism. And what you saw last night is the election of Jay Jones. This is a man who said he wanted to genocide Republican children. Democrats voted for him by the millions. Can we put up the Jay Jones? I want to see the election results, please, in Virginia. If we don't have them, please get them. Jay Jones, millions of Democrats voted for him. Here you go, Attorney General election. You can see here just a perfect description of what happened yesterday. So 1.8 million Democrats voted for a man who says he wants to murder Republicans. 53% to 46%. A perfect example of what happened last night. I wanted you to look at this map of Virginia. Here's the Democratic Party saying it is permissible to murder my political opponents for power. That's something we've never seen before. Not in the American experience, not in the modern American political experience. This is something that is, of course, extremely dangerous, and it's something that must be defeated. Thank God our founders actually laid out the framework for how to defeat it. What you'll see here is that Virginia only has like 8 blue counties. I don't think you even need both hands to count the number of blue counties that Virginia has. This is the beauty of federalism and what is actually happening right now on a national scale. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring you to the 2030 apportionment forecast and why the Democrat Party is getting so damn scared right now. Why the Democrat Party is losing it and embracing radicalism because they see no path forward. What has happened over the past decade, especially, accelerated exponentially by COVID, is that red voters, common sense voters, have fled Democrat states and moved to red states. And what that is going to do, based on the genius of our founders, who were good and Christian and moral men and set up this nation on the basis of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, is that people can freely move to pursue happiness. They can freely move. They have the liberty to do so. And where are they moving? Well, they're moving out of red states. I'm sorry. They're moving out of blue states into red states, as you can see here on the map. Now, this is just an estimation. It may get far worse for Democrats here. This is why I could care less about the redistricting battle in California, because they're going to lose 5 congressional seats anyway. This estimation is 3 congressional seats for California, 2 for New York, 1 for Wisconsin, 1 for Minnesota, 1 for Illinois, 1 for Oregon, all of them blue states. And they're fleeing to red states. You can see this in the map, the 10 states where people moved into or out of. 500,000 people moved out of New York, many to Florida. Ron DeSantis was on last night giving this crystal clear picture, saying the reason why Republicans lost New Jersey was because all of the Republicans in New Jersey have fled already to Florida. Do you understand that Republicans now have a 1.5 million voter advantage in Florida? This is absolutely critical. Democrats have brought destruction upon blue states and have forced the flood of people. Here's 545,000 people leaving New York. What is the number 1 landing destination? Florida, followed by Texas, some to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania flips red. This is federalism in action. And these states, because they are electing communists, are going to simply accelerate this trend and are going to lose electoral power. Can you please go back to the 2030 apportionment map? How does this ever make sense? How does this map make sense for Democrats? How will Democrats ever win the House again? How will they ever win the presidency again? How is it possible? It's not. You'll see it's not just Texas and Florida. I like to focus on these states, but it's also Idaho, deep red state, Utah, deep red state, Arizona, red state. Arizona was the number 1 swing state, the hardest flip for Trump, meaning the state that swung hardest in the direction away from Joe Biden, away from Kamala Harris, in favor of Trump, was Arizona. So I'm counting there 15 electoral college seats and 15 potential House seats, because mark my words, these states are not going to take the new congressional districts and hand them over to Democrats. How are they going to function after the next general election cycle in 2028? But that is why this moment is so imperative. That is why you need to lock in now. This moment is so critical for our nation. because they are going to get extreme. And as they lose power, they are going to embrace Charlie Kirk's killer. They're going to embrace the man who shot President Trump in the head. They're going to embrace radical ideologies in order to cling on to power because they have nothing that is eternal that centers them. When we lose in 2020, Mitt Romney and John McCain and whatever, it's like a joke. Like those losses were obvious. They were a joke. They were hard to take. But what happens? Like you go back to your family. You go back to church. You create the Tea Party. You create Turning Point USA. You get to work. You hit the bricks. You don't get guns and start murdering everyone. That's what they are doing now. And then embracing communism, right? Embracing the most radical fringe elements. Totally and completely foreign to the American political experience? No. That's not what we did after we lost, but that's what they're doing right now. That's what the movement of the left is doing right now. And they're doing it because they know that they're doomed. Based on their own incompetent stewardship of their states, they know they're doomed. So the headline, and don't believe anyone else who's dooming on this right now. If you're listening to any other programs, don't believe, I won't allow it. I won't allow blackpilling. I won't allow dooming on this program. What happened last night were blue states that have been wrecked by Democrat leaders on purpose, most likely, to ensure that Republicans and good moral people leave their states. Those people have fled. Those blue states then elected blue governors and blue members of their legislature and so on. That's all that happened. New York City, which is a globalist city, filled with people who are not Americans, that don't speak English, decided to elect a candidate that reflects the modern visage of New York, which is a globalist, neo-Marxist population that has come from different political and different societal and different cultural traditions than we have here in America. And they elected a guy, here's the result, to reflect that. This is not shocking, although this betrayal obviously asks and begs some major questions about what we are as Americans right now, and more importantly, what happens in the future when it comes to immigration policy. Because that was the true lesson from last night, that these states are getting what they've imported or exported. As Republicans flee and as Democrats radicalize, you're going to see this spiral. And what's going to happen is and you've already seen it in places like Detroit and in places like Chicago, as these societies spiral and collapse, it gets really bad. Okay, okay, that's interesting. Let me know here. I'm just checking on. Oh, okay. All right. Got it. I just heard from my producer that Senator Eric Schmidt is at the White House right now meeting with President Trump and doing some, well, hopefully some major strategizing. He's a really smart guy, and he's President Trump's golf partner. And we love it, Eric Schmidt. But unfortunately, he will not be able to make the show today. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, that is what has happened here in this election. So I'm not going to fret. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to shiver. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to doom. And we're going to let these states, and if you're a Republican in these states, I encourage you to stay and keep fighting. I'll be fighting alongside of you. But the beautiful architecture of our founding and our founders is at play here. The states that are properly managed and properly run are booming and are gaining power. These states that are run by these Marxists and these communists are collapsing and they're losing power. And that's the way the system is supposed to work. Effectively, the American people have voted. And you're going to get, good and hard, what you voted for in these states. So good luck to the libs in New York, and New Jersey, and in Virginia. When New Jersey comes screaming for help, we will be there. Just sent in right now from Scott Pressler, reflecting a very similar message. New Yorkers, I know this isn't what you want to hear right now, but to anyone considering moving, make Pennsylvania your home. This will help you choose a strategic county in Pennsylvania that will help us keep the House and flip the governorship. Pennsylvania is going to go the way of Florida. Mark my words. Pennsylvania is going to go the way of Texas. Pennsylvania is going to go sorry, Klein, I'm getting some audio. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I might. Yep, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the historic white pill. If you have to take a pill, make sure that you're taking it from somebody who really does care about you, especially in this current medical environment. This is an environment that is crippling American families. Everybody's insurance is going up and skyrocketing right now. Democrats did, in fact, shut down the government, made this country much more dangerous and much scarier in order to get this election victory. The governor of Virginia is straight up saying that the government shutdown was intended in order for them to flip Virginia. Nonetheless, DeSantis explaining exactly what happened. Soon we'll be joined by a mayor, the mayor of Boca Raton here in Florida, that has seen this trend in spades. Here's the governor.
Well, first of all, Jack would have won 4 years ago, and he would have won tonight if you just take all the Republicans who've left New Jersey since I've been governor and moved to Florida. If they could have still voted in New Jersey, he would have won both of those races. Same thing with New York City. Maybe not a Republican, but, Giuliani would not be able to win with this electorate the way it is now. Because what happens, Sean, is a leftist politician gets in, whether it's destroying a state like California, Illinois, New York, whether it's a city like New York City or Chicago. And the people that it tends to drive off are the center-right voters. And so when they leave, the resulting electorate is actually more liberal. That's how you go from Lori Lightfoot to Brandon Johnson in Chicago, which is digging the hole deeper. That's why you've gone from 8 years at de Blasio, now leapfrogging here 4, to have Mandani, who's even going to be worse. And what we found in Florida is, first of all, we're not asking for anyone to move. I mean, people have talked about putting a tariff on people moving in at this point because so many have done so. And I know a lot of people in Florida would think that would be necessary. But here's just the truth. You look at all 49 other states since I've been governor, look at who's migrated to Florida. All 49 more Republicans have moved to Florida than Democrats. Vermont, New York, Illinois, you name it. And the result of that is not just migration, because we've had a lot of people shift within Florida. But when I got elected, we had 300,000 more registered Democrats in Florida. Today, we have 1.4 million more Republicans.
All right. Ron DeSantis explaining that it is the populations of these states that will reflect the leaders of the state. So people in the heartland and in blue states wanted a common sense government, wanted lower taxes, wanted liberty and freedom during COVID, and they moved to Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. Libs want communism. They want a zero trust society, and that is exactly what they get. This clip is astonishing. Here from Virginia, where Democrats swept the state and where Democrat leaders engaged in violent genocidal rhetoric against Republicans and were rewarded for it by Virginia Democrats, many of them who have been laid off by Doge. You have to understand what Virginia is. Virginia is like a unemployment community for federal slob workers who never contributed anything, who never did anything, who feel like they are effectively welfare cases for the taxpayers because they worked at HUD one time and they need to be subservient to the federal bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. They have to live somewhere. They can't live in D.C. because it is so violent and dangerous. So they all moved to Virginia. And the 3 counties of Northern Virginia, which are extremely populated, effectively swing the entire state. You can see here in the map. And those people voted in a landslide for a man who wants to genocide Republicans. They were all fired. These people are the ones who are fired by Doge. They're the ones who have no discernible skill or talent other than to be an urchin working for the federal government. And that is what these counties in Northern Virginia right there, the Arlington area, represent. We've talked many times about how evil those counties are. Why are those counties the single most rich by median income counties in the entire country? It's a critical question. The reason why these are the highest net income counties in the nation are because these are all defense contractors. These are all people that work parasitically on the underbelly of the taxpayer. There's only one industry that is created in this area. There's no coal there. There's no oil there. There's no diamond mine there. The only reason people are wealthy there is because they parasitically live off of the federal taxpayer and then vote themselves engorged riches from all of us. And that is what those counties represent. Now, when Doge and Donald Trump comes in and takes that away from them, what do you think is going to happen? They'll vote for the guy that's willing to kill Republicans. And that's precisely what happened in those counties. More importantly, they'll make sure that if you are not on board with new wars and eternal globalism, then they'll bring in people to replace you. And that is precisely what's happening in Virginia. Here's a remarkable interview with a Kenyan immigrant who says, my main motivation for voting for Democrats is that I have so many more Kenyans that I wish to bring here, and Donald Trump doesn't want that to happen. This is my vote. My vote isn't to make America better. My vote isn't for the population of people that are native to this land. My vote isn't to somehow fix the numerous problems that we currently have in this country. My vote is to make sure that more third world migrants can come to America and live off of the lavish welfare systems of this nation. Understand what we've done and what many generations of Republicans and Democrats have done to our country. Here's the electorate.
I always vote since I became a citizen, and that was 20 years ago. And I migrated from Kenya originally. My family is back home in Kenya, and how I see how things are going on, like with families being separated, as a human being, as a mother, separating families, especially children, from their mothers or fathers. I don't believe in that. So that made me come out and also come and vote.
So that's one big issue. Another one is the government shutdown. Tens of thousands of government workers live here in Loudoun County. A lot of them told us that is.
Yep. Nailed it. Right there. Government shutdown in order to piss off Virginia voters because so many of them work parasitically for the government. And then that woman saying, not as an American, not as somebody who lives in this country, but as somebody who has a loyalty to Kenya, just like Hassan Piker has a loyalty to the USSR, that's why she's voting. This was perfectly reflected in Zoran Mandami's victory speech last night, where he thanked every population except Americans for his victory because the native populations of New York voted for Cuomo. What I mean by that is people who are one generation or less removed from an actual immigration status. It's wild. Here's Democrat candidate for mayor Zoran Mandami saying, we came here to remake the state in the image of our people. And that is precisely what they've done to the city of New York. Are you New Yorkers down for this? Because it's going to become Gotham. Listen to Mondami. Here we go.
We came here to remake this state in the image of our people.
We're going to remake this great American city in the image of our people, not the American people. Do nothing for Americans. Americans are the enemy. And that is the way they think. You can hear it. Last night. Here we go.
Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties. To every New Yorker in Kensington and Midwood and Hunts Point.
Everyone but Americans. Every population but Americans. Assimilation was a lie. The melting pot was a lie. It's all a lie. It's all replacement politics. And it's been laid totally bare now by guys like Zorhan Mandabi. Well, I'm thankful, actually, for it. And we'll see. We'll see how the genius of the mechanisms and architecture of our founding actually work as these states collapse and descend into anarchy. And I don't want to see it. New York's a great American city. Chicago's a great American city. Detroit was a great American city. And the people will vote. And they'll flee. And they'll leave. And they'll give the power to states like Florida and Texas and Tennessee and other red states. And they'll strip power from these states. And without mass criminal immigration, then the states will simply collapse. One funny thing that happened last night was during the Mandami election night party, apparently a Trump is your president asset was played. Trump is your president. Somebody hacked the screen last night. You love to see it. President Trump commenting on all of this. And so it begins. That's exactly our take this morning. And so it begins. Trump wasn't on the ballot, and the shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost on election night, according to pollsters. That's an absolute matter of fact. President Trump is the Republican Party. Pass voter reform, voter ID, no mail-in ballots. Save our Supreme Court from packing, no two-state additions, etc. Terminate the filibuster. President Trump is now on termination of the filibuster, a much weightier topic that I look forward to exploring on this program. But this is, of course, what is being held hostage right now in the Senate with the government shutdown is just the funding of the government. And they're doing it on purpose. It's a total nihilistic power play in order to collapse the nation and in order to collapse the federal government. One last clip, but I just can't help myself because Proposition 50 did pass in California. California Governor Gavin Newsom, Proposition 50 vanity project coasted to victory, paving the way for Democrats to flip critical congressional seats for the 2026 midterms. The Associated Press called the results promptly because, well, California Democrats voted for it. 4.4 million voters saying yes to the measure. 35% voted against it. Flanked by his wife, the governor wasted no time in bashing President Trump. Here's what he had to say.
But you see, as we speak, people are still in line. People waiting up 3 hours to cast their vote, to send a message to Donald Trump. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America.
No crown, no kings. Isn't that remarkable? No crown, no thrones, no kings. From a guy who is a Nepo baby who was installed by the billionaire class in California, who has run that state into the ground, who said you're not allowed to be on the beach during COVID, who filled the skate parks with sand during COVID, who took one of the single most beautiful, naturally gifted states in all of the Union and plunged it into absolute darkness, saying that you're not allowed to go to church, but you are allowed to go to a casino or a liquor store during COVID. Gavin Newsom, who owes his career to Nancy Pelosi, who's been in office for 40 years, who has a higher net worth than any king living today. That's a matter of fact. Gavin Newsom saying no crowns, no thrones, no kings. Gavin Newsom, who's done everything, every move has been for him to establish himself as the front runner for 2028 in the Democrat Party. And he'll be facing off with J.D. Vance.
And it was just
Vance
like hustling.
It's just like hustling. He's just hustling. This is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom. Here's a photo of Gavin Newsom hustling. Right. This is Gavin Newsom. This is Gavin Newsom is hustling. With his $700 Burberry scarf. Thank you. Very good. This is what it'll look like. Wonder Bread and mac and cheese, Gavin Newsom, with his billionaire buddies. These are the billionaire heirs of the Getty fortune. The caption on this photo was "Life of Privileged Rich Kids." It was first published. Gavin Newsom's father was the lawyer for the billionaire Getty family. And so, yes, Gavin Newsom, just hustling. Totally. No kings for Gavin Newsom. No kings. This is the no kings guy. Got it. J.D. Vance, here we go. J.D. Vance versus Gavin Newsom. Count on it in 2028. That's what we're preparing for. I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states, but a few thoughts. Scott Pressler, TPUSA, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. I said it in 2022, and I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is lower propensity, and that means that we have to do better at turning out voters than we have in the past. We need to focus on what does lower propensity mean? I just want to unpack that. Lower propensity means that these are people with lives, right? These are people that have other things going on in their lives. They have families, they have churches, and they have school clubs. They have children. They have businesses. They have other things to do. The left do not have these things. They do not create these things. It is the right who creates, the left destroys. But lower propensity means that we have other things to do than obsess about politics all day. And so this is critically important to reach these people. 2, says J.D. Vance, we need to focus on the home front. The president has done a lot, has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation, but we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to keep on working on making a decent life affordable for this country, and that metric will be ultimately how we are judged in 2026 and beyond. This is critically important. Major announcements from me tonight, as we are going to engage in this domestic fight. You have to lower costs for people. You have to make the American dream affordable and approachable. You have to unlock the dream that you can own property in this land, that you can own a home, that it's worth investing here as a young person. You have to do that. You must do it. If you don't do it, you're going to have a very, very bad future. You're going to have a nihilistic, collapsed future of this nation. And there are young people that are right now very susceptible to that. And they'll embrace communism, and they'll straight up embrace Marxism because a free home is better than no home at all. Free home, right? The cost, of course, is you being a slave and having no choice. Anyway, number 3, and this is one that I agree with probably more than all of them, although I agree with all of these, but man, do I ever punch on this one. The infighting is stupid. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans, being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty, and I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. If you care about these things too, let's work together. J.D. Vance striking the perfect note here. This is actually about the future of our country. And if we don't refocus on America, and I am sick and tired of hearing about Israel. I'm sick and tired of hearing about Ukraine. I'm sick and tired of hearing about Argentina. I just don't care anymore. I want to hear with laser focused and absolute consistency and a plan, something that we are working on developing right now, how we are going to make life better for Americans. Period. I don't care about a war zone in Ukraine. I care about a pothole on my street. Sorry, I'm just a selfish person, and I want my children to be able to be raised in a safe and stable and functional society. That is my birthright as an American, and that is what we're doing here. First, that is what America First is. I want my children to be able to afford homes. I want them to be able to live happy and peaceful lives. That is what I am fighting for.